The Match Ball.
Hello, welcome to The Match Ball, brought to you live for our TSB Plus members on YouTube. If you're catching up with the podcast, you can subscribe if you want to share in moments like this, where we talk about games that Leeds United have been involved in recently, such as the Everton game. This is brought to you with Levi Solicitors, by the way, and we are truly grateful for their support. 10% off your legal fees, levisolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. Down in this seat, Michael's there, and Moscow is in his retro 1991-1992 yellow away shirt, which it's actually prior to that. It's Top Man, isn't it? Yeah, I just noticed the sponsor.
We won at Goodison in this.
Happier times.
Probably the best thing I've seen today.
Yeah.
Shirt.
It's the best thing I've seen at Everton for many years, yeah.
Your description of games that Leeds United are involved in, I don't think... Why did you use that? That didn't apply today.
That was awful, wasn't it? Was that as bad as we've seen under Bielsa, do you think?
We lost 7-0 to City.
Yeah,
they're good though.
I didn't really watch that.
That's the thing. They're good. Everton are shit. Everton have won once since, I wrote it down earlier, 25th of September. Everton have won one game since then. And they looked absolutely as good as Man City almost in that. They've just completely blew us away. Or we made it incredibly easy for them. Big
Consequence of them being managed by a Leeds-hating bastard.
Well, I think you've got to give Everton credit today, sadly, because we got it wrong. I think we play three at the back against two attackers. Knackers our entire game plan, doesn't it? It weakens an already threadbare midfield. So you overrun us, don't you? Quite simply, bodies in the middle, too many to deal with, and then all you need to do is match our intensity or beat it, and there you go.
Yeah. It was obviously not working from. It was Gordon, wasn't it? Had that chance very early on.
First minute.
I think Cox tried to clear one, but he just ended up kicking it into some space in the middle of the pitch where I don't know if there's normally someone stood there, but there wasn't. And I think because Ayling had pushed out on the far side, there was just an enormous gap in the middle.
I mean, even late in that second half, Forshaw was contending for a ball after he'd come on, and it kind of broke in the middle of the pitch. And I think, did he lose the ball? Can't remember either way, but I looked and there were three players around him.
He was doing a nice
I was doing his little, and there were three players around him. So that goes to show the problem. And it goes back to a theme that we've said a few times before, Michael. I think this show, Phil Hayes' show, where we've said you can tell within the opening 5 or 10 minutes what Leeds United you're going to get on any given day. And today it was absolutely shite.
I mean, I've got away from my betting against Leeds thing, but I watched the first 2 minutes of that and I was like, let's put a 5 on Everton. It was all out of my account. I just thought, that can go on Everton because we are losing this. It was obvious right from the start that it needed something to change, and we just didn't, did we? I think Forshaw starting would have maybe helped.
Yeah, having a midfield.
Because I mean, the second half were we better, or were they just so comfortable that they could?
I think it long since got away from us, hadn't it? It was too big a mountain to climb. I don't know. What do you think
about what?
What he just said. Were you listening?
I'm not interested in what he was saying.
Just on that second half, they sort of took the foot off the gas a bit, but do you think the game had just completely got away from us by that point?
Yeah, if we'd scored before, if either of Rodrigo's stupendous shots had been a little bit lower, it's a very different game, but the vibe was off all the time, wasn't it? There was never a moment where you felt we were in it, and, blaming it on vibes is probably a get-out clause when probably there's a lot of cases being made on Twitter right now about the transfer window and youth players and all the usual things. But it did just seem... You do get games where everything just didn't right. And the reverse of that is that Everton got a game where everything was right. And I'm not kidding about the Leeds-hating bastard in charge. I think he put them up for his first home league game against the team he hates the most, and got them playing more like us than we ever managed to play. They
out-Leedsed us.
Yeah, it's not just the three at the back thing and having no out. It's that they pressed higher. They didn't play anything like that against Newcastle. No. It's completely a bespoke beat Leeds performance, and it'll be interesting to see whether that works for them again or whether that was just to get one over us, and then they're good to go back to being rubbish next week.
I have no doubt that they'll lose next week because they'll be knackered after all that effort, as we've seen loads of times, but that's no use to us, is it?
I'm not even sure it was that much effort today, to be honest, to beat us. It looked quite easy.
They put loads of work in. Everton were working all over the ball. It was like us at our best when there's tackles in the 90th minute.
I've never seen Richarlison try as much as that.
Never. And you've never seen Iwobi play well.
Mm.
And he was brilliant in the first half. Every time he had the ball, he was just charging about and doing things with it and getting the ball. There was a lot of players who I think previously under Everton have just been previously at Everton have been hiding, and today they were just out there to get us.
I mean, the thing is, what happened at Newcastle was Newcastle did to them what they just did to us today. Just completely outfought them, pressed them high, pressed them aggressively. And that's the thing with Leeds. If we can't impose our pattern of play, our style of play on the game, we often just collapse, don't we? Especially if we get one behind, it often does turn into two, and then it can spiral out of control into three because we keep going forward. I mean, I don't even count that third goal particularly.
Well, their goals were, I mean, they were scruffy goals, weren't they? One's a corner. The first one is it's kind of like the way we scored against Villa. Daniel James's one before half time, where it's, you know, the ball's spinning up at the back post and somebody comes charging in. They weren't particularly like graceful goals. Some of the other chances they created were well done, but yeah, it's. But
they didn't need to be. They didn't need to be that good to score against us today. Because how many times did they have balls where you thought, "Christ, I hope no one's arriving at the edge of the area for this one"?
And whereas we managed to create basically zero chances.
Yeah.
I know the Rodrigo hit two from distance that were obviously very close, but we didn't create a single clear-cut chance for anyone.
It was Dan James should have pulled it back instead of shooting when it got in behind. That's the only one I can really think of.
This one's on Bielsa, isn't it? I'm afraid to say.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so.
Can we pick it apart any more than that? I don't ever want to say bad things about him, but it doesn't work, does it, that setup every time? And I know it's always with the benefit of hindsight, and I know we're kind of...
It's not hindsight, though, because we've said several times that we don't like it when we go three at the back, and it changes the way we play, and trying to do it without Calvin Phillips in the team is particularly risky because he's our best defensive-minded midfielder, so he's able to cover a lot of shortcomings in playing that system, whereas when we do it as today, it completely flopped from the first minute to the last. There was I don't think there's a single good thing to say about that performance. Meslier did okay. He made one really good save at the end.
Helder was good. Rodrigo was pretty good in the first half. Not terrible in the second.
But it's funny, isn't it? You understand why he didn't change the team that put the performance in against Villa, but every game should be taken on its own merits as well.
And we did sort of change the team because the shape of it changed. So
yeah, well, that's true. Yes.
So it's not the personnel was the same, but the roles people had in it were different, and it very much didn't work.
And it is one of those hallmarks of the playing the three at the back, that when we have that three-man midfield, because we play so wide, we make the pitch so big that you often do find one player is in there on their own, or nobody sometimes.
And we just kept giving the ball away. Like unforced errors over and over again. Like Ayling and Harrison, I looked it up actually. They gave the ball away. Harrison gave it away 28 times. Ayling 27.
Bloody hell!
Which is ridiculous, isn't it? In a game to lose possession that much.
But I mean, you got to give credit to Everton as well for their approach to that and making us give it away, because they forced us to change shape for one thing. So we didn't have the midfield, we didn't have the outlet, because Robin Koch, who you would normally look for in that hole in the middle in front of the back four, is in the back three.
There were a lot of unforced errors in it though as well. There were we seemed, I don't know if there were people were looking up and seeing a lack of options, so just hitting hopeful things where they thought someone should be stood, but we were not passing it directly to Leeds players. It was weird. It's like we were completely doing hit and hopes, which is not our style. It's
almost like Everton were pressing us really high and making it really difficult to pass out.
Yeah,
you know, I'm sure if you took all the Everton players off the pitch, we would have been able to.
It would have been great, wouldn't we?
Find a shirt as well, but you've got to remember that, you know, they were right in our faces, making it more difficult to pass. And so when you say unforced errors, if you go and have a look at when we were giving the ball away, you'll find a lot of the time there will have been an Everton player right in the face of either the player passing or the player they're trying to pass to, and that forces an error.
It goes hand in hand with the formation, doesn't it, as well? Because when you don't have the outlet, you've got a player then who suddenly just decides to kick it against someone, or try and send it down the line, or give it away, or just pump it into a general midfield area because the options weren't there.
Yeah, I mean, the third goal is probably the illustration of that, and is Everton's Leedsist moment of being in the last 15 minutes of a game, pressing us really high so that we can't pass out from the back. Meslier is reduced to just banging it long, and because we're set up to attack, we don't win that ball because we're not set up to win long balls, and it comes back at us and they score.
Bad day then. And the problem is, like, I feel like we're a broken record, because when we have these days like this, and unfortunately there have been far too many this season, we know what the problems are. It's the same problem that's been there all season. And it's exactly what you said, Moscow. We end up circling back to, well, they should have bought a midfielder, be it in the summer, in the January window, and ultimately we're now powerless to do anything because in for a penny, in for a pound. Bielsa won't change. We just have to hope we've got enough now. But when you look at the upcoming fixtures, it's, well, you know, maybe they won't be as bad as we fear, but you don't look at them with a great deal of optimism when you conceded 10 goals in 5 games, for example. That's it then, isn't it? A huff and a sigh, and that's the end of the show.
It was so bad today. That's I mean, Southampton away was terrible and could have been 3-0 probably.
Do you know, it's funny because I was looking back at this season's results. I think I was trying to work out which kit we were most cursed in. I tried to work out how many goals we conceded in the blue one. And for some reason, in my mind, we did lose 3-0 to Southampton. And then I looked and it was 1-0.
We deserved to lose 3-0 in that one, probably, because it was like today where we just had nothing. There was none of the normal zip about us. There was absolutely... We never threatened them at all today. It was weird. And the subs, obviously, I mean, I think the subs were enforced, weren't they? Because obviously Dallas went off injured, who was previously being uninjurable, but he's now gone off. And then we assume Rafinha was injured, don't we? Because he was actually doing all right first half. I thought he was probably our most dangerous player. Well, him and Rodrigo, I guess, were the two that were looking like they might force something. And then, I mean, Forshaw coming on was sensible. Do we have to talk about the other one?
Yeah, I mean, this is why we're here. But again, with all the discussion around, you know, like Tyler Roberts coming on, we know what the issue is there about quality and other options and stuff. So we don't need to say it again. It's
bring Kel out.
It's entirely self-evident. We'll just end up going around in circles on it. It's a self-evident thing. It's Bielsa's decision. He's the boss, and he ain't for changing, is he? So what more can we say about it? He's wrong in the eyes of many people. He might be right in the eyes of some as well. We have to say that. It's his show, isn't it? And we're all just watching on.
I would have liked Joe Gelhardt to have come on instead of Tyler Roberts. I'm not saying it would have worked, but it would have at least been a bit more interesting. Whereas as it was, we made the change and nothing changed, did it, on the pitch? I'd struggle to say Roberts played badly because I don't think he touched it enough to play badly. It just seems that it just completely bypassed him.
Well, like everybody. Everybody, didn't it?
The second half was complete. The first half was really, we were genuinely terrible and it felt like they were going to score all the time. The second half, it just felt like really not much happened because they were just comfortable and more or less holding on to what they had, but without any difficulty whatsoever.
Just looking through the YouTube comments, actually, and Lewis puts it very, very well. Roberts wasn't the solution, but he definitely wasn't the problem today.
No.
Which is...
He didn't make anything worse, particularly, but he also didn't improve anything.
I think a lot of them... well, like you say, you've already said, people who gave it away so much made it a lot worse.
But I think Roberts had 13 touches
in
that second half, which... What's the point?
I mean, we didn't really have any attacking presence, full stop, though, did we? Because we were just, we were beaten, weren't we? And it just was never, ever happening.
XG of 0.25. As much as that. I'm actually surprised it was as high as that. Because I can't think of anything that we created.
We hit the bar twice.
I know, but they were just shots
there was
from
the
distance.
Good, at 1-0, there was 15 decent minutes in the first half that shouldn't be forgotten, and then we conceded from a corner, and that was that.
I mean, 1 big point, 2 big points, 2 little points today. Richarlison, we noticed afterwards, very small nipples.
That needs investigating, doesn't it?
Do you think?
Possibly.
Yeah, he had very, very small nipples. But apart from that, it's the only really light point from today.
Just because you've got great big beef burgers doesn't mean...
I'm actually quite small of nipple myself, so I have a bit of stuff in common with Richarlison there. Come on, Moscow, you've normally got something optimistic to offer us, so give us something optimistic today.
I liked Matthias Klick's glasses on the bench in the second half. I thought that was good. I like seeing the good glasses, and he looked smart in them.
Yep.
So that was good.
He looked like an exchange student.
Was it a bit weird that Klick went off?
Well, not really, because if you're looking to change yourself and change the pattern in midfield and impose yourself in midfield, you've got to, I guess, take off one of the midfielders who's either pushing too far forward or not.
But he is a midfielder.
I know that.
You wanted Forshaw on at half time, though, so who were you going to take off?
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Jack Harrison. Put James out on the wing instead. I mean, Rafinha being forced off changed things as well. But the problem I thought was that we just didn't have enough people in midfield, and then we we just did a straight swap more or less. I know Forshaw plays a deeper role.
This goes back to Bielsa's dogma, doesn't it? And the way he sets up and his refusal to bend on formation. So if you want to impose yourself on midfield, you do. It's plan A done better, isn't it? That's his theory. It didn't work at all, but there you go.
I mean, the flip side of that is, how bad would it be if the opposition played 2 up front and we didn't go 3 at the back? Because then we would just be 2 on 2 and people running around spare. So it's kind of he was saying the other week about unprovable hypotheses, but would we have won if we'd have been 2 at the back with 2 against 2 on Everton strikers?
But is the answer then that we just can't win? We couldn't have. We could. There is no situation in which we could have won that game.
Well, we have won with.
No, I mean in that game today, because the system we played was a complete catastrophe, and we looked like we could play that game 100 times more.
And is it purely because we had 3 at the back, or is it because we had 3 at the back and also Everton played really well and pressed us and blocked us from getting out and made everything really difficult at the back and blocked all our routes to go forward and won the game that way? We have won games with 3 at the back before. But
there are other ways of potentially winning that game, is what I'm saying. Like, you can't.
I think that the truth is that you can never discount the opposition, because it's a 2-team game, as we've said loads of times. So you have to give credit to the opposition when they impose themselves on the game like Everton did. But equally, from a Leeds point of view, you need to find a way to manage it and to mitigate what they're doing, and we just had no answer to it.
Everton are not that good. There's no way. Loads of teams have beaten Everton since September. They're like one of the worst teams in the league in terms of form since September. So you can't say, oh well, what can you do really against the brilliant Everton? They're not that good. They weren't good last week. They probably won't be this good next week.
But today.
That's because we make it easy for them.
Well, did we make it easy, or did they make it difficult for us? By having a good game.
But I think lads, look, we could go back and forth on this all night. It's both, isn't it? It's a part of the opposition. It's part of how we set up. And no, Everton are not perfect, but we didn't do anything to mitigate it.
So say that we'll never win with 3 at the back isn't true, because we have won 3 at the back, and it wasn't the only thing that affected the victory today, because there was both. So we got there in the end.
Marcelo Bielsa says Rafinha's halftime substitution was tactical, not injury. So we have that. To go on. So presumably his snooded up conversation with Richarlison at the end was in Portuguese, presumably was no idea. But Bielsa's in the comments, he's saying he felt it was a fair result, struggled to defend. The positioning of Klich was an error on his part, so he's taken it on his shoulders, as he always does. Struggled to regain possession, and that's about it.
I'm amazed that we've taken Rafinha off as a tactical decision.
But it does go back to what Moscow just said, actually, then, about who do you take off when you're trying to make changes. And as we were laughing, weren't we? Was it the Villa game where we were saying it'd be nice if we could just sneak Joffrey on and see if nobody noticed? And at one point, actually, the ref did stop and count the players, didn't he? I think. But yeah, this is the thing, when you've got to make changes, nobody is beyond taking off.
If your option is Tyler Roberts on the bench, don't take Rafinha off, like, ever. I would suggest. I don't see the purpose of when has Tyler Roberts turned a game off the bench? Like, I think it's never, probably. He's occasionally done all right, but like I don't see any sense in that.
Just a bit of further detail on the tactical aspect of it and Klich. Phil is now just fleshing out these comments, saying that he's talking about Klich playing in front of the defence. It didn't seem that way to me. It didn't feel like he was particularly deep lying, or was he?
It didn't seem like we had anyone there. So he was presumably not doing that job.
Because to my mind, I saw quite a lot of, and obviously I've not kept a full mental record of every position of every player on the pitch, but Klich and Rodrigo alongside each other quite advanced a lot of the time.
We managed to achieve today being overrun pretty much everywhere on the pitch, and it was weird because I was saying at a certain point it seemed like...
Where are they coming from?
It's like, how have they got... Where are our players? Because we were attacking and we didn't seem to have anyone forward, and then we're defending and we didn't seem to have anyone back. It's like, I think they were all just on the edges. So there was just a massive void through the middle. So when they broke through there, it just felt like there was nothing we could do about it.
Which is probably Bielsa's point, that he had Klich was supposed to be there and never was. So he had to get him off and put Forshaw in, and he was saying it's his mistake.
How many people are actually watching this, by the way?
Some brave souls. Let me have a look. 79 at the minute. Well done. Hey, well done to the 79. I think a lot of people have dipped in, but we can't take it. Come on.
Completely fair enough.
It's about endurance, isn't
I
it?
felt like that with the game itself, to be honest. I just want it to be over.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't really pay much attention that second half. It felt like there was nothing there to particularly interest me, and I was not surprised when we went 3-0 down. It would have been, if we'd have come out of the blocks at the start of the second half, it might have been better. But
what were the building materials you were looking at? Because I was sitting behind you, I could see you were shopping for some. Was it rubble?
No, it's type 1 aggregate, because I'm doing my garden. You use it as a sub base for putting down. So I just, because my mate texted me because we're doing the garden together, and he said, "Do you want me to look into this from this company?" I said, "Okay, I'll have a look." Yeah, it's the right stuff. Type 1 aggregate.
Good.
Yeah, that's that.
Is
again.
it good? Did you get was it looking like a good deal?
I haven't ordered any, but yeah,
right.
Reasonable
but
price.
You managed to narrow it down to what's going to do the job.
Yeah, it's got 2 different names. It's branded differently depending on where you buy it from. So I was just double checking it was the same stuff.
Is it cheaper if it's one brand and not the other?
No, it's just how it's described.
Oh, okay.
Crush and run or type 1 aggregate.
It's not something I know much about. I've always had an upstairs flat, so I never needed to buy this
Can I
kind
have
of stuff.
a ton of aggregate delivered to the top floor, please?
Yeah. You're getting a ton of it.
3 tons actually.
Don't go that far.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's surprising. But we need to put like a 2-inch sub base down for artificial grass. So get it down. It's the same stuff they put on the road. So you get like a whacker plate, which looks like fun. So I'm going to hire that for a weekend. Maybe next weekend. Who knows? Not go to the football. And just do that in your garden. So there's your agriculture and gardening tips for today.
Christ.
Nothing. We've got nothing, have we?
Propaganda as well, haven't we? What was? I'm just looking at my notes. I've just not written anything positive down. Yeah, we're just rushing everything, giving it away constantly.
Lee, who's in the YouTube comment, says Dan's aggregate search went better than January for auto. I couldn't find any aggregate anywhere. I looked across the entire aggregate market, and there was just none that fit my bill in the entirety of Europe or the domestic aggregate market.
And now your garden's sinking.
Yes. Oh, God. Just need to get to the end of this season now, don't we?
Or we just have another game like Wednesday, because that was mint.
Yeah, it was, but we still only got a point.
2 days ago.
But again, we had a massive gaping hole in our midfield, and we got away with it because we managed to score at the other end, whereas we didn't have anything going forward today.
So we don't get any credit for playing well in that game.
No, we do. It was great, but it counts for nothing if we go down, does it?
Well, it got a point. So if we stay up by a point, it counts for a point.
Yep. Fair point.
Plus side from today, Watford have lost again at home to Brighton. That was a game they probably would have earmarked as they need something from, I guess. Brentford have drawn at home to Palace, which I guess they probably would have looked to get a win in that if they're trying to chalk up where the points are going to come from. And then we've got Norwich, Man City, and Burnley, Liverpool tomorrow, haven't we? So
hopefully we're not punished for it. Yeah.
So hopefully we get another week of more or less the same gap.
Yeah, I don't think anybody.
It's not much fun, is it?
Nobody seems to be building up any momentum around us. I would be interested to see how Everton do. They've got Southampton next, then it's Manchester City, Boreham Wood, then Spurs.
Fancy Boreham Wood to get 3 points there.
And then their run-in at the end of the season is Scum, Palace, Liverpool, Chelsea, Leicester, Brentford, Arsenal. So they have a tough end.
Jay is in the comments suggesting that, and this is all in capital letters, so I think it's a very forceful point, saying no aggregate would improve the aggregate you already had, which is a fair point.
There you go. And I think for us, obviously next week, Scum, Liverpool, Tottenham is going to be interesting. But
6 points out of 9 there.
It's Leicester, Norwich, Wolves, Southampton, Watford. That's when we stay up, isn't it? That's the run of games to look after.
Down.
I have to say the lovely titled "Am I Tuner" just says in capital letters, "I love watching Leeds." So I don't know if that's some sort of.
They are certainly my favourite football team.
Yeah,
not today, but generally.
No, even today.
I mean, you can have a favourite
that I like the best out of all of them.
You can have a favourite thing, but still not like any of them.
And on the theme, I keep coming back to this Leeds hating bastard business, but I wrote on the blog in midweek after watching the Newcastle Everton game that in the last 10 minutes they didn't, after it was 3-1, they didn't cut to Frank Lampard once. You didn't see him at all. All I was watching for the last 10 minutes was you searching for aggregate and Frank Lampard smirking on the sidelines. They loved showing him and him applauding the fans, all that stuff. So if you were going to predict a sickening result today, then Lampard smirking for 10 minutes is probably, the most Leeds outcome. I will enjoy that being wiped off his horrible face
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of the season.
Good. So there we go. Let's wrap it up there then, I think. I've got nothing else to add unless you have. Any thoughts? No. Not interested. Moscow? You all said your piece?
I tried.
We tried. We all tried. We all tried, didn't we?
What's your match of the day tonight?
Probably not.
Okay, I don't want to see it again either.
Might give that one a swerve. Get a film on or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stare at my back garden.
Dreams of aggregate.
Yes, there's probably a pun in there about aggregate score, but not today. Right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Putting up with it. We'll see you soon.
The Match Ball.